Well, listen, thank you guys for showing up. Said again, kind of a full house, 10 questions prepared for the candidates. Just a quick formatting thing. If you have a phone, please mute it, silence it, whatever you need to do. And then in addition to that, what we're going to do is we're going to do quick self-introductions of the candidates. And then what will happen is I'll ask a question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. I hate to interrupt people. However, my good friend Tom Hoffert over here is going to stand with a yellow card when you have a minute, and then red means stop, which means I have to interrupt, which makes me very uncomfortable. So please, let's try and stick to the red. In addition to that, if there is a question that is answered and one of the candidates addresses their opponent, either by opponent or by opponent's name, the opponent will have an opportunity to then have a 1 minute rebuttal to the question. Any questions before we get going? Everyone's good. All right, easy peasy. So let's just start out with a quick self-introduction. Andrea, please.
Thank you, and good morning, and thank you to the chambers for inviting us and for all of you to take time out of your busy days. I'm State Representative Andrea Salinas, and I'm running for Congress as both the Democratic nominee as well as the Independent Party of Oregon. And I'm running because I know that change is possible in a single generation. I know because it happened for me. My dad came to the US from Mexico when he was 5, and he picked cotton and tomatoes in the Rio Grande Valley. He taught me the value of hard work, and I went on to become the first member of my family to work my way through college, earn that 4-year degree, and I was able to graduate without strapping debt. And in the United States, gaps in policies have made it so that working families, no matter how hard they work, are really struggling to get ahead. A lack of federal paid family medical leave means that families and parents need to figure out what to do about their growing family. They have to make hard choices when it comes to caring for their youngsters and caring for their elderly. Since joining the Oregon House, I've been a champion for women and working families, winning battles to pass some of the country's most comprehensive drug pricing laws, making sure that women have access to the full suite of reproductive care, and really working on reducing our carbon climate crisis here in Oregon. I've worked as a state legislator for 2017 for a couple members of Congress, and I'm proud of the work that I have been doing. And I'm really excited. We have a new opportunity to send someone new to Congress from this district. I look forward to continuing to serve this community and the small businesses of the 6th Congressional District as the next member. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks everybody for taking time out of your schedule to be here too. I know we're all got things to do, but this is important for our state and our country to elect the right person to represent us back in Washington, D.C. I'm a small business owner. I've been a business owner for 30 years in Tigard. Started my company out of my house. We had a commercial on TV, explained a little history, and used to work at Tigard Fred Meyer in high school and college. I worked there for about 8 years at Fred Meyer, different stores there. I started a company at Supply Chain Logistics. We help companies throughout the US and Oregon here with all their supply chain problems and needs. And we've become a real problem solver to some of the biggest companies in the US and the world. Companies like Under Armour, John Deere, Starbucks, a lot of big corporations use our company's expertise to help them with their supply chain challenges and problems. And boy, do people need help today. I mean, the price of supply chain has gone through the roof. It's just delays and problems, one thing after another. We're seeing it every day, living and breathing. We are so busy now at our work. We expanded into Europe and the Netherlands. We're up in Canada. So I understand what global business is. I understand what local business is and nationally here. So I think in Congress, it'd be real important to get some people that really understand a global environment when it comes to the business world. So I'm going to do everything I can to represent small businesses, families, and everybody in this district. And when I say small businesses, and I mean the farmers, the restaurant owners, the retail shops, everybody needs a real advocate back in DC now more than ever. And I'm looking forward to being a hardworking advocate for you folks. There are so many problems in this country and world. We need real leadership, and we don't need political agendas. We need real problem solvers back in Washington. My whole life as a business owner and helping companies with their problems, I've been just that. I've been a problem solver first and foremost. And that's what I want to bring to Congress is a real problem solving mindset. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So we'll jump into the questions at this point. And then one thing I forgot to note is at the end, we will have an opportunity for each candidate to ask their opponent a question. So first question, what do you feel is the most pressing issue in the district? It's a 2-part question. And what action are you prepared to take to address the constituency is concerned. We started with Andrea, so we'll go with Mike first here.
Sure.
Happy to repeat the question.
You want me to go first or?
Yeah. you
Okay,
go.
good. The most pressing issue I see every day I'm out there meeting people, shaking hands, it's inflation. Inflation. People are just fed up with the rising cost of food, rents, housing, gas, everything that touches their lives every day, just their daily things they do in life is more expensive now than it was 2 years ago. We've got rampant crime problems. We got all kinds of issues with other immigration and things that just need to be addressed. But the most important issue that I see every day from what people are saying is inflation. We need to do everything possible in Congress to get inflation under control. Rampant, which means our national deficit is at 33 trillion. We got to do everything we can to rein in government spending, which is a big part of inflation. We got to do everything we can to get our energy independence back to where it was, getting oil and gas prices back down to a level that's manageable. It's now back over $5 a gallon here recently, and that's killing everybody. I mean, the farmers paying for diesel. So there's a few things that we need to do in Congress to get inflation under control, and that's getting back to being energy independent. And the first thing we need to do is go back and look at making our country like the Keystone Pipeline, get that open again, and look to the future as well, and go through and encourage innovative technologies like green technologies, solar and wind, and improve the reconnectivity issues that are delaying the problems of connecting solar to the grids. There's a lot of problems that these people put windmills together and they're not being able to connect to the grids for a year or two. Those are called connectivity issues, and those need to be addressed. There's things we need to do to get back to being energy independent that'll go back and drive lower cost of fuel now and in the future. And I think getting everything we can do to get inflation under control is my biggest priority in Congress.
Andrea?
Thank you. So I have been out talking to constituents, businesses, city councilors, county commissioners, and we're hearing that people are struggling. They're really struggling with the high cost of living. And that is something that we've been trying to tackle here at the state level, but there is definitely a role for the federal government. And whether it's things like increasing the minimum wage, expanding access to childcare so that people can get back to work in a really meaningful way, or lowering the high cost of healthcare. I consistently hear from not just individuals, but small businesses who want to attract labor with a good healthcare benefit plan. And it's just as important to make sure that our small businesses actually have what they need to make sure that they can grow and get the labor force that they need. We're hearing a lot about labor shortages right now. And so whether it's workforce development or economic development, the federal government has a role in them, but they need to work closely with the states to make sure it gets rolled out in the right way. So making sure that we bring down prices, expand opportunity, and really support working families in a meaningful way so that they do see that these costs that they're really struggling with right now go down.
Thank you. And a little extra time. Holy cow. That's unusual. What do you think the role is of business within the community, and how will you support small businesses to ensure that their role is accomplished? We'll start with you this time.
Yeah, thank you. So there is no doubt that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We've seen this through COVID. We all saw, our favorite coffee shop or little restaurant struggling, and some of them had to close. But we know that that you all really are the economic engine of our community. And so I think we really need to, look at our leaders and make sure that we elect leaders who are going to support the needs of our small businesses. And again, going back to the idea that, we've been seeing these labor workforce shortages that I think we really need to address in a meaningful way. We need to make sure that people are back to, full employment and filling some of those gaps in, whether it's healthcare or childcare, to ensure that people can work, that they can get to work healthy, they can get to school healthy, and that they can also know that their children are being cared for properly. So, but providing the tools needed to expand and grow. So legislation that helps small businesses do that. And then making sure, again, that we put in place the right policies to grow economic development and make sure that we have the workforce training, and whether that's apprenticeships or career and technical education in our community colleges and higher ed. So those are the many types of policies that I'll be eager to support, and really working with small businesses, working across the aisle to figure out what you need here on the ground, because listening to the people in the district is critical. too often Washington, D.C. is not attuned to what the people need in different states. And as your representative, that is exactly how I will work.
Mike?
As a small business owner, I've lived and breathed the problems that a lot of you dealt with also as small business owners. It's tough out there. You work your tail off to start a company and build a company, and what you run into government regulations, government interference. What we need to do is be left alone. Less government control, less government regulation, less government mandates are better for businesses. Unfortunately, our government here at the state level and the federal level is pushing too much of their interference into our lives here, which I think causes trouble. I see it every day when it comes to whether it be this rising costs of, like, for instance, interest rates nowadays. They're at almost 7%. We need to do everything we can to get interest rates down lower. Businesses need financial support, they need credit, they need resources to grow their business, to invest, and you go to a bank and get a loan. Interest rates are incredibly high, the highest they've been in years. And a lot of businesses can't afford to get a loan and expand. So we need everything in Congress we can to go through and make sure our government is doing what they should do and pushing the Treasury to keep a low interest rate for businesses, and especially these small businesses that survive almost week to week. So there's a lot of business out there, whether it be restaurants, the farmers out there. When I'm talking to them all, they keep saying, labor issue is a big one. We need everything we can to start looking at maybe really doing an immigration reform on our southern border. What's happening now is not working. We need to really reform that so workers can come here under the work visa program and not the migrant work, not the what they call asylum, come in and disappear. I think that's wrong. We need to expand that so the construction forces can get labor, the workers that need it, or the restaurants are closing up early because they don't have labor. You've got the farmers are begging for labor. Labor is one of the top issues that we are facing out there as a business. I believe I'm here to that as well. So we need to make sure our immigration reform for the migrant worker force that could come here and help out is really refined and redone, and it needs to be fixed. It's a real problem down there. But there's a lot of other issues, and as a business owner that are addressed, and it's healthcare. Okay, but there's so many issues that we need to work on as a small business owner.
Mike, we'll start with you this time. Critical component to thriving workforce is the ability for working families to have access to affordable childcare. What steps would you support to address affordable and available childcare for working class families?
Well, I have a lot of employees who got families too, and they struggle with that. They drop their kids off before they go to work. They're always looking for affordable health care. And that's an important issue. And, I think we do everything we can in Congress at the state level to make sure we have affordable health care and a thriving economy, that one for your business can grow and you can get resources to employees to have health care for your and child care for your kids. There's a lot of states have got good programs out there. I think one thing I like to do is emulate and see what other states have done that are successful. And too often we try to reinvent the wheel here, and we may not be creating the best goal. I would like to go back and look at what are the best solutions out there throughout the country here, and sort of bring those back to the state and bring it back to our Congress and make those the successes what we should do for here in Oregon. And I know what it's like. I have young kids, 7-year-old, 10-year-old. I got a lot of family members that've got young kids as well, cousins, and they use child care all the time. And it's important that you got child care. You can spend half your daily income paying for child care. And a lot of people decide, hey, I can't go to work today because child care is too expensive. It's a real problem. And we do everything in Congress that I can personally to make it affordable for everybody, especially the people that are like single moms and families that are barely making ends meet. Those people need the help the most. They don't make a lot of money in their jobs, and healthcare or childcare is so expensive. It prevents them from really getting the proper. The kids go home alone, so we need to take care of that for those families that really need it.
Thank you, Mike. Andrea?
Thank you. So again, during COVID and during the pandemic, we really saw a need for additional childcare, and I don't think we realized how close on the precipice we were to losing, because these are small businesses. Childcare facilities are small businesses as well. And they realized that they were, I think, running on the margin, and they really needed some support as we stepped into COVID, because there were additional costs on those businesses to make sure that they were clean and healthy and free of COVID. And they really weren't able to take as many children as they once did, and things of that nature. So the state decided to step in, and I supported policies that would help, because I was hearing from my professionals and other business owners that they couldn't get back to work and they couldn't do their jobs because they needed quality, affordable childcare. And we just saw a depletion of it, as we went through COVID, and we still have not recovered from that. So in addition to the state policies, I would support the American Families Plan, which is a federal bill that actually passed through the House of Representatives. I think it's still over on the Senate side, waiting for some action, but it basically would have prevented, as people recognize that it's really expensive, but it would have prevented middle class and lower income families from paying more than about 7 to 8% of their income on childcare. And so these are the types of policies. We need to make it affordable. We also need to make sure that those businesses bring back the childcare providers, so we actually have a workforce to take care of our kids in a quality, healthy way. We want parents to go back to work, assured that their children are in a safe place.
With interest rates rising, the cost to borrow money from businesses is rapidly rising as well. What policies would you support to offset these costs to ensure businesses may find ways to grow and expand through turbulent economic times? We'll start with you.
Thank you. Yeah, you are absolutely right. I mean, again, and I've been hearing this through COVID and, kind of post-pandemic, we're starting to come out into recovery mode, that businesses are hurting and they are suffering. And so, as somebody who has worked in the state legislature, as, congressional aide, always working across the aisle and listening to folks and figuring out what it is that folks need, I think is super important. And I think we have to recognize that we need to bring quick solutions right now to businesses, while Congress is also tackling this global inflation problem. That is a larger economic problem, has geopolitical implications as well as larger global economic implications. But things that we could do right now is we could double the research and development tax credit. We know that we can start, innovate, and grow businesses, but too often our smaller businesses don't take advantage. They're not able to take advantage of the research and development tax credit. It's always the larger corporations. We can fix that. We can fix that in our tax code so that you all could take advantage of it. We can start businesses. I know that we have incubator businesses in pharmaceutical industry right here in the 6th Congressional District. These are things, and these are types of innovation that we need, not just here in Oregon, across the US. And I would love for us to be a leader. Also, things like the Paycheck Protection Program. I know that I had businesses in my district that really did benefit from, passing the Paycheck Protection Program, so that they could either get low interest capital while they were, trying to figure out how to scramble to keep the lights on, to keep their employees working. And some of those loans were also forgiven completely. And so we know that, we spent billions of dollars on this, and it was worth it. And so those are the types of policies that I would continue to support to make sure that not only businesses survive, but they thrive as we move forward.
Thank you. Well, good question, because right now it's interest rates, like I just mentioned, are at the highest level they've been in almost 20 years. And the construction industry, the housing industry, people trying to buy homes, it's crippling them and this whole industry. The housing industry and construction industry is being shut down right now. You're seeing big companies like D.R. Horton and Lennar and American Richmond, they're shutting down these projects. And we're at a point in the state here where we got a huge housing crisis. We got rental rates are going up, housing prices have gone up, and we got lack of housing out there. High interest rates are having a devastating effect on all that. It's pushing the American dream of owning a home out of reach for many, many people. So we in Congress can do everything we can to work with the Treasury Department and the people back in DC, that the powers that be involved in that, to make sure we get low interest rates. The 7% interest rate plan that Biden administration has up there to try to stop inflation, I think it's wrong. What they should have done is, first of all, they should have gone to become more energy independent instead of driving the fuel prices up like they did his first day on the job. Biden had an executive order to shut down the Keystone Pipeline and discourage investments in oil. That drove up inflation dramatically from day one. The stock markets was skyrocketing. Then you've got now, I mean, if we're going to do that, get the fuel rates and diesel rates and gas prices back lower. That's a bigger impact on our inflation than raising interest rates. What you're doing now is you're crippling an entire economy here. People can't even go and buy homes. Look at what's happening. The home sales aren't as much as they used to be. The housing starts aren't what they used to be. People aren't building apartments like they used to because they get a loan. These guys people that own construction companies and build apartments and build homes, they've shut it down. They just said interest rates are too high. They borrow money to build these homes and apartments. If you want to change things and get housing back to where it was, we need to get interest rates back to a more manageable level. That has a big ripple effect in a lot of different industries.
Thank you, Mike. This is kind of a two-part question, really more of a yes or no, and then expand on why you either support or did not support. So the question is, do you support the inclusion of 120 billion in additional unemployment assistance included in the COVID assistance package proposed by a bipartisan group of lawmakers? And did we start with Andrea?
Yes, I think it's my turn.
What's that? So it's
Good. Yes, I actually supported that. I know it's an addition to our national debt, which I try to reduce and do everything I can. But when you get an emergency, you need to take care of the people of this country. There'd be like a hurricane going on right now in Florida, or would be mass flooding in different parts of the country. When it comes to emergency, you need to do everything you can to get the people and the businesses in this country and state back on their feet. And this program here was badly needed and it affected a lot of companies. Restaurants were shut down by our state. Kate Brown extended the mandates for employees to work from home, limiting hours for restaurants and businesses. I mean, it crippled the entire economy here for a whole year. My employees were, they all worked in the office, and now they're working from home. And I still let them do a hybrid right now. There's still some concerns about that, but they're all coming back slowly. But I mean, it really affected a lot of us here. And so that really helped a lot of people survive. It kept the people paying their payroll. So the payroll protection plan was badly needed. And I've talked to so many people that were restaurant owners, small businesses, and said, without that, I would have had to lay off all the employees I have. So that was one of those issues that needed to be done. And I think there could have been some tougher regulations on it. It was almost like some more controls would have been better. So I think that's what we should do next time when this happens. But it was something that had to be done quickly. And I understand why both parties voted for it, because it was a very important time in our country's history to take care of the people that needed it most.
Yeah, so I mean, I saw it. I was, I served as a state legislator, and I still am a state legislator serving as we recover from COVID. But during COVID, my businesses were calling me, my workers were calling me, needing help to access unemployment assistance. And we've not recovered. And so I would say, yeah, I would definitely support extending unemployment assistance. I think we realized that help was really needed to make sure that families had food on the table. Again, they were struggling. I was trying to put them in touch to make sure that they didn't go, weeks without getting a paycheck, and making sure that, kids had the health care that they needed, making sure that they, were able to try to connect because a lot of families don't have internet access. They don't have broadband, making sure that they, had the resources to try to connect in those areas. So really, that unemployment assistance was super helpful, and it's going to continue to be helpful as we continue to recover from fully from COVID. And so I would, it's easy for me to understand where I think my, working families and these businesses are coming from to really address their needs. And the unemployment assistance, working in a bipartisan way, again, hearing, I think, from all sectors is truly needed. And it's something that we should continue until we are fully recovered.
Thank you. If elected, would you support efforts such as ending the ban on new oil and natural gas exploration on federal lands and waters and restoration, canceling oil and gas lease sales to strengthen our country's energy security? Andrea, we'll start with you first.
Thank you. So the United States energy economy and the sector is being hit hard right now. And it's being hit hard because we are not energy independent. And we recognize that, we are in a climate crisis. It is at our front door, and we've seen it. We've seen more recent, some delays in refineries because of the wildfires that have been going on. So we did see a recent spike in gas prices. This is due to, climate-driven wildfires. And so this is not just bad for the economy, but it's also bad for the environment. And it is also bad for national security. Right now, we are beholden to dictators and national interests that do not have democratic interests at heart, and they do not share the same kind of values with the United States. So we need to become more energy independent to be able to serve our people right here. We could be, I mean, and we are ripe for this. We have solar here, we have onshore wind, we have been leaders in these industries. We have geothermal that I don't think we have fully tapped, and we should soon have offshore wind as well. These are energy production jobs and a new economy that will take us into the future and help us to be more energy independent. And so I'm really excited to support these types of policies as your next member of Congress.
Well, one of the worst decisions by this administration, President Biden, was his executive order shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. First thing he did in office was shut that down. That was the worst decision for this country, I think, happened in a long, long time. In a matter of just months, we went from energy independent, a nation, to one that was begging for oil from the Saudis, Argentina, and other countries that we shouldn't be dealing with. So that was the first mistake that happened with what. So we should restart the Keystone Pipeline, like I mentioned, and encourage investments in energy technologies, energy solutions, both for the future and for current here. Refinery, we must encourage investments, and what Biden's done is discourage investments in oil production. So I really believe we need to do everything we can, both for the future and current, to get our country back to being energy independent. We need to find long-term solutions as well as short-term. And I drive 2 hybrids, and I always say we need a hybrid approach to this problem. And you don't need a long-term future and raise the price of diesel for farmers and people paying $5 to $6 a gallon. That's going to cripple our economy and destroy parents and families, their lives. They depend on cheap gas to get around and move around. So we need to do everything we can in Congress to keep us being energy independent. I will work hard to push that we get that Keystone Pipeline put back together. That's the short-term solution, and do everything we can to get gas coming from Alaska down to our refineries down in Houston and other parts of Texas. We have a supply problem. What we need, we're taking from our energy reserves and things like that. We should be doing that. We have plenty of gas and oil and stuff up in Canada and our northern states. We just got to build that Keystone Pipeline and bring clean, cheap, better gas solutions to our country right here and become energy independent. But the hybrid other part of that is becoming long-term energy independent by using green technology, battery technology. You know, all the cars we're seeing nowadays, you got to plug them in. We don't have the grid to support the network of cars. We got to work about that as well. Fix that solution.
In August, the consumer price index hit 8.3% year over year. How do you plan to support small businesses as a member of the United States Congress to lower costs for working families in America?
Okay. Consumer prices almost all year long have been about 7 to 8%. You're basically working your entire year and you're taking 1 month of your salary and giving it, it's basically you're being taxed. So that's really what's happening here. You're being taxed by all the things that are happening: higher fuel prices, higher food prices, higher, everything you're doing out there is higher now than it's ever been. We've been taxed as a country and it's costing us quite a bit of money. That 8% has been compounding and getting worse and worse. It's the highest level since Jimmy Carter. 40 years ago, we're literally almost in a recession right now. We need to do everything we can to get inflation under control. And I've been a supply chain consultant, advisor to a lot of the biggest companies in the US. And the biggest problem they're saying is supply chain costs are driving up the price of other goods. So they pass those on to consumers. If you look at what's happening over in, it used to be $2,000 for a container from Asia, anywhere in Asia, to the West Coast ports here. What do you think it is now? It's $8,000 to $10,000 a container. Now, if you're a small mom and pop and you order 1 container a year, maybe it's Halloween goods or electronic goods, and you're paying 5 times more than you were 2 years ago, and you pass those costs on, you're not going to survive very long. Because we just got to do everything we can to get our supply chain costs under control. I've got some great ideas on how to do that. The global companies out of Asia, the big ocean containers, they used to have about 200 million profit a year. Now they're at 6-7 billion profit a year in 2 years.
Thank you, Mike.
That's just crazy. We need to go back and rein in some of that.
Thank you, Mike. Andrea?
Thank you. So this is an issue I understand. I'm a working mom. We're a middle-class family. I'm not wealthy. We've had to adjust our family budgets. And I think, and again, I'm hearing from my constituents all over my district that, they need lower costs. And I think there are, again, some things that we can do immediately from the federal level in Congress. So I think people are hurting at the grocery store. I think they're hurting at the gas pump, and I think they're hurting at the pharmacy counter. And those are three areas that I feel like I can tackle, and I could do it right away. Congress has a bill in place, the Lower Food and Fuel Cost Act, that actually would appropriate $700 million to make sure that we are moving our meat and our fresh produce from the fields to the shelves more immediately. And these are areas where we will be putting money back into growers and small business profits. So this is something, and again, lowering the cost of groceries for consumers. We also can continue to release our petroleum reserves and make sure that gas prices are being lowered that way. And this is something that we're currently doing. We can continue to do this. And in addition, I think we really do have to monitor and hold accountable any big oil corporations who might be trying to profiteer off of this crisis that we're in right now. It is not fair when we have small businesses suffering and families trying to make ends meet if big corporations run off with additional profits right now. And then finally, making sure that our healthcare costs are going down. And so I would absolutely support being able to negotiate drug prices through Medicare. I hear all the time from our seniors how the cost of prescription drugs forces them to choose whether to buy groceries sometimes or take their full dosage of medications. And this is something that, again, families could take advantage of immediately, in addition to making sure that we cap the cost of insulin. Insulin is a life-saving drug for some people who have diabetes. They need to take it. And when you have high out-of-pocket costs, it's just too much.
What type of policies would you support to address the catastrophic effort of global supply chain issues? Let me just read it again because I have a little thing in my throat there. What type of policies would you support to address catastrophic efforts of the global supply chain issues? I apologize. Andrea, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. So it's easy to see. We are seeing, global supply chain disruptions everywhere. We're feeling it, everything from cars to home appliances. Things are taking longer to be delivered. It's throughout the entire supply chain. But again, I think Congress has taken a good first step, and it is something that I would have supported with the CHIPS Act, because we know that semiconductors are really the cornerstone to making sure that the supply chain really starts to flow again. And so bringing manufacturing jobs back here to Oregon. We actually used to manufacture semiconductors here. We're the home of Intel manufacturing, and we could do this again. And this CHIPS Act will start to do this. And so bringing good manufacturing jobs right back here to Oregon is something that I want to make sure we continue to do. I always say agriculture and manufacturing, it's the base of Oregon. We should be able to do it now. We can do it into the future, but we need Congress's help. And I will be that leader who makes sure that Congress listens to the folks of Oregon and the 6th Congressional District to help your businesses, again, making sure the supply chain gets addressed, but then making sure that we bring those jobs back here.
Thank you, Mike.
I talked about supply chain earlier, and I'll talk about, but I just want to bring up one point. I disagree with Ms. Salinas. She said she wants to continue, she would encourage and continue to pull petroleum reserves from a national reserve. I disagree with that. Those should be for an emergency. And for her to say that she would continue to push the Biden administration or herself in Congress to pull from our energy reserves, for those should be reserved for an emergency like war, things like that. Right now, the Biden administration is using that for the wrong purposes. We have the resources here in our country. We got the resources in Canada. We have cheap fuel that we can get down here to easily take care of being energy independent. And we should not be taking the resources from our energy reserves, like she just said. Second thing she just said that I really disagree with is she's talking about farmers and the cost of goods and food. I asked these farmers just recently, what is the biggest cost driver for you? And besides diesel, which I just talked about, it's labor. She says they're all concerned about the new the farm worker overtime bill. Ms. Salinas was the driving force behind that Governor Brown just signed, which is going to drive up labor costs for all these farmers. And the biggest issue these farmers brought up here was that labor, and diesel are the biggest cost factors. And in an interview in the paper, she was quoted as saying, I care about the migrant workers almost more than the farmers. The farmers can figure out the new cost structures. I just think that's a slap in the face of every farmer and every agricultural business here in the state. So for her to say that and to say she's really for trying to lower the cost for farmers is just wrong. Look at the facts. She was the lead initiative, drove the initiative for the farm worker overtime bill, devastating to the farmers of this state. But for her to say she's really trying to get farmers' costs under control, she just drove up one of the largest input items that farmers have to do. The farmers are upset about this. And so I just think the record needs to be straight. I don't agree with her on taking the energy reserves, the fuel, or what she did for the migrant work, for the farm worker overtime bill.
Thank
I
you.
just,
Real quickly, because Mike addressed, Andrea, you have 1 minute to rebut the comment.
Yeah, I would just go back to working families are suffering right now. And I think, whether it's making sure that you can get to work, making sure, that your costs are going down. And that is something that we can do immediately. Standing up additional pipelines is going to take years and years for us to actually see anything come to fruition in terms of cost at the gas pump. But right now, letting those reserves is something that we can do, and we can actually address family issues right now and family costs. So I would say, and then to the second point, when I brought farmers to the table with farm workers, the thing that I kept hearing was, we are not going to actually pay the overtime. We will just need to find additional workers. And so I would love to fix the immigration problem nationwide, because it is a problem. It's a problem with our farms. It's a problem with our restaurants, many service sector industries, construction. So this is definitely something I want to continue to work on, because it's not just an Oregon State issue. It is a national issue.
Kind of a two-part question. Inflation Reduction Act have multiple components which will harm the future growth of small businesses, such as the corporate book minimum tax, changes to tax law related to carried interest. If you would have the ability to vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, would you have voted in favor or against the legislation, and why? Mike, we'll start with you.
well, it does very little to reduce inflation. I think it's the biggest incorrectly named bill I've ever seen, the Inflation Reduction Act. What it does, it increases the IRS agents by 87,000 workers. 87,000 added to the IRS is what Biden wants to do. Why is he doing that? He wants to go back and check every person, their tax returns. He wants to do more scrutiny on those things for businesses and so forth. What's it going to do? It's going to create an agency bigger than Homeland Security. Do we really need that? I'd rather put those resources to things that really need it here. Things like Homeland Security, the border, things that really need it right now. We have a real crisis at our border, and it wasn't even addressed in that package. It's doing very little. All the people that reviewed it, almost the majority says it may have some effect 5 years from now or 6 years from now, but it's going to have no real impact right now. And everybody says it is, it's not. What's happened? The moment he signed that and that bill went into place, inflation's still at 8.3% for 2 months in a row. It's done nothing in the last 2 months. It's not predicted to get any better. So this is a wrong bill. It added more to the national debt. And so those are things I consider there's a lot of indiscretionary projects in that should be in there. I would do everything I can to rein in government spending if I was in Congress, and that's a bill I would have said no to.
Thank you. Again, because I've been hearing from so many individual families and small businesses, I am really thinking through a lens and hearing their stories and thinking through a lens of what is it that we can do right now. And the Inflation Reduction Act is something I would support, and for two reasons: because it will bring down the cost of energy and it will bring down the cost of healthcare. And in terms of healthcare, it will allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices for seniors, which again, I've been hearing for years. It's something I've been trying to tackle here in the legislature. We now have some of the most transparent drug pricing policies where pharmaceutical companies really don't like to increase their prices, because they know that we are going to be looking under the hood to figure out what the justification is for that. And to make sure that, folks, again, who need their life-saving insulin or diabetes, they have a cap on what they pay for out-of-pocket costs on that. So $35 is a save your life each month. And then making sure that energy costs go down. So energy utilities, because we are going to be expanding, we're going to make the biggest investment in renewable energy, again, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in Oregon and across the US, means that our utility bills will start to go down, not just for homes, but also for businesses. And so for all of these reasons and more, I would support the Inflation Reduction Act.
Thank you. As a member of the United States House of Representatives, how would you work with business leaders in your district to ensure their voices are heard on legislation which would have a direct impact on their businesses and or employees? Andrea?
Thank you. So as a state legislator and as a congressional aide to Congresswoman Darlene Hooley many years ago, I knew how to listen, and I still do. And I listen to the folks who come to my office, and I have an open door policy always. And, that doesn't matter if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, if you want to tell me how wrong I've been on, certain policies. I want to listen and I want to learn from you because you all are the experts. I'm not running my business, a business right now. I did when I was, a student painter back in college, and when I was a consultant, I had businesses then, but not right now. And so I need to know, how is this affecting you? And that is what I will continue to do. And then, kind of learning and taking my cues from Congresswoman Hooley when she represented this district as the 5th congressional district, she asked me as her aide, go reach out. So my first summer here as her aide, I went out and I don't know, I talked to probably 50 or 60 individual small businesses to find out what it is that you need. And at the time, even back then, I was hearing a lot about internet access. It's spotty, it's dropping. I work from my, my phone, and I drop calls all the time. And then healthcare, being able to attract labor with a healthcare package and that sort of thing. And realizing that, even small couldn't find their own individual plans for healthcare. So those were two of the issues back then, but I would do the same thing, not just having you come to me when there's a crisis, but building that relationship and continuing to understand what your businesses need is how I will work as your next member of Congress.
Mike?
Thank you. Our district is very diverse. I think it's a microcosm of the whole state of Oregon. You think about it. We got agriculture, we got the wineries, we got high tech, we got restaurants, retail, malls. It's one of the most diverse. I think it's one of the best districts and that to represent. As a small business owner for 30 years in that district, I started my company in the district 30 years ago and hiring people here. I've got a lot of my clients are in the district. So I deal with a lot of companies. I hear their needs, both with global supply chain issues, labor issues, other issues. I'm out there. Companies become more efficient and how they move their freight all over the world, cutting their costs down. So I hear some of the concerns of these people in the district. But there's a lot of business leaders out there. Like I just went to the tolling, the Washington County tolling they had with all the mayors from Tualatin and county commissioners of Clackamas and Washington County, and listen to them about what their thoughts are on tolling. 90% of the people in that room said they don't agree with tolling, even the Clackamas County commissioners. Yet our legislature, the Democratic controlled legislature, pushed through laws that say that we are going to put tolling in place between I-5 and Portland. And it's supposed to start up in 2 years at $4 a person going during the peak hours. They're trying to discourage behavior. And that's wrong. I think that there's no vote of the people on this. In fact, at the meeting here, so as a member of Congress, I'm going to be in those kind of meetings and listening and hearing and fighting for you. I don't agree with the tolling, but the Democrats passed it. And so we need to do everything we can to reverse that. They say that the state, Governor Brown signed the bill, whatever it was passed, and ODOT has now got 5 representatives. And so for those of you who don't know this, it's going to affect transportation issues, every one of us. There's going to be tolling in Oregon unless we really complain and revolt about this. I don't think that's what's needed by the people. So we're a different environment than we were. People are not going downtown Portland to work. They're working from homes. There's a lot more people move here, so that's a problem. But we need to relook at this closer instead of just letting this be a mandate by our Democrats in Congress here in the state level.
Thank you, Mike. So we are done with the prepared questions, and we're going to enter the phase where each candidate has an opportunity to ask their opponent a question. So with that said, there will be one question from each candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and Mike, you will be going first this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Andrea, for 2 weeks, you have been running false and untruthful ads attacking me on TV. In the ad, You claim I was charged with a felony drug conviction. You state as a fact that I was 2 times over the legal alcohol limit. And the most dishonest accusation in your slanderous ad, you show 4 lines of cocaine with nothing to substantiate your claim. On Monday, our attorney, Jill Gibson, directed your campaign and to you personally to cease and desist running that ad. In fact, the Hood River District Attorney contacted you this week and your campaign to inform you that you were running a false ad and that you should pull it immediately. I have never been charged or convicted of any drug-related charges in my life. I've never tried marijuana. I've never tried a drug. I've never tried oxycodone. Yeah, your false ads are accusing me of absolutely terrible things. Untrue slanderous ads against me is still running on TV today. We asked you to pull them down on Monday in a legal letter. Please admit to this audience today that your ad is false and that you'll be pulling the ad down immediately and offering an apology to me, my family, for your character assassination.
Thank you for the question, Mike. So I was forced to set the record straight. I come from a law enforcement family. My dad was a police officer for over 30 years.
I'm talking about the drug accusations.
And I know what it's like to have a family of law enforcement and somebody on the front lines. And I know what it means to have dangerous people on our roads. And so setting the record straight for me means walking the talk. And there was nothing in the ad that said anything about a conviction. There was nothing that said that that was cocaine. There's nothing false in the ad. It was setting the record straight on something that is actually in the record. There is a record that shows the charges that were presented. And so that is what that does. And when I am attacked on my record that is completely false, I had to set the record straight. And that is exactly what this ad did.
Did you get the letter from the district attorney or the
Thank you, Mike.
because she said
Sorry.
what you're saying
Sorry.
is
Time out.
you're lying.
Thank you. You asked a question, she answered. Andrea, you now have an opportunity to ask Mike a question. And Mike, you have 2 minutes to respond. Thank you.
So, Mr. Erickson, you seem to think that legislation to lower prescription drug prices and energy costs was wasteful spending. But your business accepted over $150,000 in federal pandemic relief that was completely forgiven. Would you have considered that to be wasteful spending as well?
I already addressed that earlier question. I think we're at a critical, it's almost like COVID. It was badly needed for a lot of companies. And our employees were forced to work from home. All the trade shows and all the events we do to generate sales were shut down for 2 years. You couldn't go to conventions, you couldn't go to trade shows. We relied on those as our main source of business. We had clients calling us saying like, Daimler trucks, we can't pay you for 6 months. We're shutting down our plants. So we're not gonna pay you for 6 months. We had lots of companies tell us they're not paying us because they've shut down their operation. But they asked us, would you please accept no payment for 6 months? We were hit hard by this as well as everybody else. I needed that also. We used it to keep our employees paid. I'm glad it was there.
Thank you. So we're winding down here. We're really to the end of the program. What we want to do at this point is to allow each candidate 2 minutes to have closing remarks, and then we will wrap it up. So with that said, Andrea, you start us off, please.
Yeah. Thank you again for taking the time out of your busy mornings and for being here and to the chambers for pulling this together. I know multi-chamber events are not easy. And I just want to say, I know that, again, from my years in the legislature and really more so from COVID, that families are hurting right now, families and businesses. I'm hearing from them all the time. And now as a congressional candidate, I'm continuing to hear that, we have not fully recovered. And I recognize that, and I see it again in my family budget and the things and the decisions that I have to make with my 17-year-old and my spouse. Tough choices, right? So everybody, I think, is really tightening their belts and trying to figure out what's next. And I think we need proven leadership. Somebody who has actually worked at the congressional level, at the state level, to bring people together, to collaborate, to figure out how to get to the best solutions and the right solutions and take that voice back to Washington, D.C. Because too often people at the federal government they're not attuned to the needs of the districts. So I will be that representative. I'm very eager for this new opportunity to bring folks together and to serve you as the next member of Congress from the 6th Congressional District.
Nope. I just want to, part of my closing statement, I'd like to just touch on what she just said. Andrea Salinas is doing a smear campaign at probably the worst level this state's ever seen. She's putting undocumented, unproven. In fact, the district attorney sent her or talked to their staff this week and said, your ads are completely not true. You should take them down. She just said right there that she saw some proof. I would like to see that. I checked with them. They sent us a letter saying, Mike, you have never been charged with any drug possession, any drug charge ever. Ever. If she sit here and just lied to every person in this room that she said that she saw those charges, you want her to represent you in Washington, D.C. You want someone who's going to tell the truth. You don't want someone who's going to lie and do sleazy, dirty politics to get elected. What you're seeing today, with her not admitting to it, it's just terrible politics here in Oregon. We need to make a stand and say, we're not going to accept this anymore. Andrea Salinas, I gave you a chance to apologize and say, hey, you know, I had a mistake. I didn't check my facts, but you didn't do that. You continue to expand your untruths and your lies on TV. I'm asking you again, will you please take down those false TV ads? You can talk to the district attorney in Hood River. They're going to tell you what you're saying is not true. So it's time you step up and be a truthful leader. If you're going back to Congress, speak the truth, because right now you're lying to everybody in this room. But last thing I want to say on this here, I am tired of the political divide in this country. We need to work together in Congress and not have this political agendas and the problems. We need problem solvers that are going to go back and tackle the true problems this country needs. I'm not doing this because I need a new career. I've got a really good business I like working for. I have a 7-year-old, 10-year-old. I want to stay here and coach them. But our country needs leaders now more than ever. They're going to stand up for principle, go back and work hard to make our problems go away and tackle this inflation and the crime problems. I'm going to do that for you. I will work hard as your congressman. I can promise you that.
Thank you for your closing remarks. Yep. I want to thank both candidates for being here. This is not an easy thing for people to show up in this environment and have these conversations. We are blessed as a Salem Chamber to have relationships with the other chambers. And they're also joining us today to send this out across the internet. So really just want to say thank you to the candidates, first and foremost, for being here, and their staff. And then also want to really thank the other chambers for participating in this. And with that, a blessing of 3 extra minutes in your day. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you.